Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another video in my Pandaria raid solo series. In this one, I'll show you how to solo the Throne of Thunder on 25-man heroic mode. This is the most lucrative raid, providing around 3,000 raw gold in about an hour's time if you know the fights. And you also have some really lucrative pet drops. And yes, every boss here is soloable, but it's very class specific. Just as a point of reference, I'm running this raid as an eye level 879 Affliction Warlock, so if you have anything close to that, you should have a similar experience. You can find this raid at coordinate 6432 in the Isle of Thunder, and to gain entrance to the Isle, you have to go to the faction camps outside of the Shadowpan garrison in the town-long steps and talk to your faction NPC there. For Alliance, it's at coordinates 5069, and for Horde, it's at 5173. There are 13 bosses total in this raid, and if you only need certain ones, check the description because I'll have some timestamps set up for you. And before you head out, you may want to pick up some flasks, DPS food, potions, and heroism drums. So, the first boss in this raid is Jin'rokh the Breaker. Pretty straightforward fight to start things off here. Most of his mechanics are unavoidable since he only has one target, but there's nothing that deals a crazy amount of damage. Basically, what you want to do is just tank him until he picks you up and throws you into a statue. Once he does that, a pool of water will start forming under the statue, and if you stand in it, you get a damage and healing buff, but you also take more damage. So, if you can manage the extra damage, I recommend staying in this to burn him down faster. This is going to be dependent on your class and how much self-healing you have, of course, so use your best judgment. Next up, we have Horridon. This one is a DPS race. He'll put on a stacking debuff, which will eventually just cause you to take too much damage. You have to kill him before it stacks too high. There will be 4 gates surrounding the arena. When the fight starts, immediately pull him to the northwestern one. Trolls will periodically spawn from these gates, so just kill them when they do, making sure to keep a good amount of damage on Horridon as well. Eventually, a special mob named the Zandalari Dinomancer will spawn. You have to kill this guy immediately because he heals Horridon. Thankfully, it is interruptible though, so if he gets it off, just make sure you interrupt it right away. When he dies, he'll leave behind an orb. Click on that and it'll send Horridon crashing into the gate, stopping any more trolls from coming out and also stunning him for 10 seconds. So, DPS him down during the stun and then rotate clockwise to the northeastern door. And it's basically rinse and repeat from there. Keep killing the trolls until the next Dinomancer spawns, take him out, click the orb, destroy the gate, rotate clockwise, and keep doing that. Each gate that Horridon destroys will crack his shell, and he'll take 50% more damage per stack, so try to save your cooldowns for 1 or 2 stacks of that. This guy also drops a mount and an expensive pet, so good luck with those. Next up, we have the Council of Elders. This is a 4-boss fight, and there are different ways to do it. Periodically, a shadow will jump between the bosses, giving them powered up abilities. I think most strategies will share that the Frost King Malak has to die first, and the reason for that is because he'll put on a stacking debuff that'll eventually stun you for 15 seconds. The next target is the High Priestess Marley. She's troublesome because she has some heals, and if she gets possessed, she can summon a shade that insta-kills you if you get near it. The best way to avoid this I found is to kill her before that happens, and if you fail at that, you have to kill it from range before it gets within 6 yards of you. Sol the Sandcrawler can also be troublesome for melee because he roots you, so he should have a high priority as well. And Khazrajin I usually save for last because he doesn't have anything dangerous. So as a ranged, my order is Malik, Marley, Sol, and then Khazrajin. And if you're melee, you might want to go for Malik, Sol, Marley, and then Khazrajin. Just pay attention to see if Marley gets the shade though, because she has to die as soon as possible if that's the case. Next up is Tortos. Pretty simple fight here. The biggest thing you have to worry about is staying within melee range so he can hit you, or else he'll do a powerful AoE attack. He'll eventually send spinning shells at you that knock you up into the air, which can bring you out of melee range. So, make sure you either dodge those or AoE them down and you should be good to go. The next fight is Megaera. To make it appear, you have to kill 3 Mogu Shades in the cavern and click on the bells they protect. Here's a map showing their locations. And the boss is very straightforward. No one-shot mechanics to worry about, just DPS down the heads as they appear. Self-heals will be handy because it's a pretty lengthy fight with some low but consistent damage. Next up we have Ji-Kun. This boss also drops a mount. You'll fight her on a smallish platform, and the only thing you have to worry about is her downdraft ability. This is similar to the Dressarin ability in the Darkheart Thicket. It pushes you back, and you have to run forward and use speed boost to stay on the platform. It is random, and she'll not always do it before you can kill her, but it's just something nice to know so you don't get caught off guard. So, Burning Rush, Blink, Sprint, whatever movement speed boost you have, use it. Next up, we have a DPS race, and that's Durumu the Forgotten. I say DPS race here because at one point he'll direct some beams of energy at you that deal some pretty heavy damage. To get out of this phase, you're supposed to have these beams touch invisible shades and you DPS those down. But it's a mechanic that's really meant for full raids, so usually, depending on your gear, you'll die before you can uncover and kill all of the shades. So, the best strategy I found is to just take the damage and try to DPS race him. It's like Rochambeau basically, and if you have anything close to my eye level, it should be pretty easy to race him down. Obviously, any self-healing will be really handy as well, and this is a good fight to use heroism drums if you picked any up. The only other thing you have to worry about really is the purple stuff. He'll be using this throughout the fight, and if you get hit by it, you get knocked off of the platform, so you always gotta keep an eye at your feet and dodge it immediately because it's pretty fast. Anyways, next up we have Primordius. Nothing too special about this fight. You can just face roll it and DPS the boss down, but if you want to do it correctly and speed it up a bit, kill the living fluids in the room and run into the pools that they spawn. And keep doing that until you transform. In this new form, you'll deal much more damage to the boss, so just burn him down from there. Next up, we have a boss that probably 90% of you clicked this video for, and I'm sad to say that there isn't a 100% reliable way to beat him. You can kill him solo on Heroic 25, but it requires 4 things: the right class, good timing, good self-heals, and some luck. The fight starts after you pop the blood orb in the middle, and a bunch of robots will swarm you. It has a mechanic to where you can't let the adds get close to each other or else they'll multiply their damage, even insta-gibbing you at level 110 and beyond, I'm sure. So obviously, this is troublesome if you're doing it solo, and there are a couple of ways to deal with it. The best way, if it's available to you, is to pop any immune spell and then just AoE everything down. So, Divine Shield for Paladins, drop a Frozen Orb in Blizzard and then Ice Block as a Frost Mage, AoE an Aspect of the Turtle as a Hunter, and so on. If you have something like that, you definitely have an advantage in this fight, but if you don't, it's still possible as you'll see. The implementation is going to vary wildly depending on your class and spec, but the overall strategy remains the same. AoE down all of the adds while trying to stay alive. As an Affliction Warlock, I was able to do it with the following talents, namely Demonic Circle, Sow the Seeds, Dark Pact, and Phantom Singularity. I drop my Summoning Circle in the middle of the room near the entrance, and I pop the orb on the left side of the room. Immediately after starting the fight, I throw out a few seeds along with an Agony to pop them, Phantom Singularity for DPS and healing, and I teleport to give myself some distance. Now, at this point, if you didn't kill enough adds, you're dead. There's very little room for error, and you have to get the opener 100% correct and kill enough adds to where you don't get one-shotted. If you do it successfully, you do have a little breathing room and you'll be pushed into phase 2, which is still pretty difficult if you don't have the self-healing. One of the mechanics to this fight is if you kill too many adds near the boss, he'll go into the full power mode and continuously shoot stuff at you. This lasts until the boss is dead, and the only way really to deal with it is to self-heal and DPS him down. You may have a few more robots spawn. Make sure you kill those ASAP because you don't want any extra damage. If you're having trouble tanking it, I found that you can kite the beam a bit if you're using a speed boost and you have some distance, so use that if you get into trouble. And then head back in for a DPS burst. And you basically want to keep doing that until he's dead. So like I said, very difficult at the moment and it requires some luck on top of things. Some of you may be disappointed that there's no super reliable strategy that works for every spec, but the bottom line is that there isn't any. But hopefully what I shared is enough to get you past this boss. But from here, you'll be glad to know that it's pretty smooth sailing in comparison. The next fight is the Iron Quan. There's nothing really too crazy with this fight. This guy will periodically switch mounts. The only troublesome thing with this fight is the lightning pet because it does have a lengthy stun. So try to burst that down as soon as possible. Once you dismount him, he'll summon all of his pets, so just make sure that you take out the lightning one first. Next up is the Twin Consorts. Nothing too special about this fight. Just DPS the bosses pretty much and don't stand and stuff. They will be switching off every now and then, but just DPS them down when they do and you should be good to go. Next up we have Lei Shen. The biggest worry with this guy is his knockback. Once he reaches 75, 50, and 25% health, he'll jump into the middle of the platform, and similar to Ji-Kun, he'll start sending you backwards. At this point, use any speed boosts you have to stay on the platform. And another thing to worry about is his lightning whip. This is a 4-second cast spell and it'll knock you back, possibly off the platform if you get hit by it, so just dodge it if you see him casting it. The big mechanic on this fight are the conduits. You may have seen that the platform has 4 different quadrants, and you'll notice a UI plate showing the status of each conduit. If you tank the boss in a certain quadrant, the conduit for that quadrant will start charging up. I've never run into any one-shot mechanics with it, but just to be safe, you should try to tank the boss on each quadrant evenly, trying to avoid charging one conduit too much. Like I said, not really necessary, but you may as well be careful with that if you can. The biggest thing really is just the knockback phase. He'll do it 3 times in the fight and a bunch of adds will spawn during it, so make sure you have your AoE ready as well so you don't get overwhelmed. And lastly, this brings us to the heroic only final boss, Horridon. This is a special boss only available in this mode, and you only get 30 attempts at him. It is a DPS race. Shortly into the fight, he'll summon 2 orbs at the opposite sides of the room. These orbs start moving towards the boss, and you have to let him absorb the blue one first. If you let him touch the red orb, he'll one-shot you. And from here, you need to DPS him down as fast as possible to push him into the next phase before he summons another orb. Once he reaches around 30% health, he'll run into the middle. If you let him get another orb while he's doing this, you should be fine, just make sure that it isn't a red orb. As you can see, I got another blue orb and he rushes into the middle and starts the next phase anyways. More orbs will spawn, but just focus your damage on the boss and burn him down. The only difficult thing here is racing to that second phase. It requires a lot of damage to be able to do it before you get more orbs. Like I said, as an eye level 879 Affliction Warlock, I was able to do it, and that's without heroism, so I think if you're close to that eye level with drums, you should be fine. And that's the Throne of Thunder complete. It's a pretty lucrative raid overall. Like I said, it takes about an hour if you know all of the fights, and in raw gold with vendoring all of that gear, you get around 3,000. And in this particular run, I got around 21,000 gold worth of pet drops. There are 6 pets in total in Heroic 25, all pretty expensive. You have the Pygmy Direhorn from Horridon, the Living Sandling from the Sand Trolls before the Elder Council fight, the Ji-Kun Hatchling from Ji-Kun, the Viscous Horror from Primordius, and the Son of Animus from the Animus fight. And you also have the Spawn of Horridon mount from Horridon and the Clutch of Ji-Kun from Ji-Kun. And on top of that, you have tons of transmog and achievements, so it's a good raid. Probably the best for gold farming in Pandaria. So that's about it. That's the Throne of Thunder in a nutshell. Hopefully this guide helped you out, and if you have any additions or corrections, feel free to add them in the comments, especially class-specific strategies for the Animus since that's the hardest fight in here. But that's about all I have to say, I guess. I hope you found the video helpful, like it if you liked it, and thanks for watching. Peace.